Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
First, the federal government is proposing 5% excise duty for telecom, gaming, and betting services. These sectors, particularly for those who do gaming and betting, have not really been taxed, but now the federal government is proposing 5% excise duty to increase tax revenue. What will be the implication of this bill, and what aspects of the economy with this impact? Speaking to this morning, we have SOUQ, who is an economic analyst, and it joins virtually. Good morning, Sheson.
Good morning, and good morning to all our listeners across the globe. Glad to be here this Thursday morning.
All right, Sheson. So, 5% excise duty for telecom, gaming, and betting services. The federal government of Nigeria has really been on a tax drive to increase revenue. But going to the telecom sector, this 5% excise duty is going to apply to all telecom services, from drop calls to data and to every services that is provided by telecom operators. First, how do you see this bill, and what do you think would be the implication on telecom services before we get to gaming and betting services?
Okay, thank you very much. The proposal by the government to levy 5% excise duty on telecoms in particular, sincerely speaking, you took it away from me because I want to separate the two, the telco from the betting and gaming. Telco is strategic considering the time that we found ourselves, and we cannot underestimate the value that it gives in current time. Practically, it's just what is happening between you and I. It's about cost savings. I know if not for good telecommunication facility, this that I'm doing from my current location might really not be possible. And when you look at other areas of businesses, this has actually created so much. So levying them 5% because we consider that there is high revenue from them without looking through the implication that that will be transferred to the to the consumers or the customers is what is of great concern to me. If you look currently, the basic infrastructure by some of these telcos are majorly important, and the foreign exchange has actually stiffened the process at which they can carry out a good business that can earn them good surplus after the whole thing. The equipment they make use of. When you even come to the domestic aspect of it, for us to have good connectivity or good voice calls, you discover that majority of their up must be up and running. And the critical cost when it comes to that is energy cost. And not too long, you know how we have increased the cost of electricity, how the cost of diesel has actually gone up. And it's been a very tough time for the telcos, if you ask me. I play in the energy sector, and I service one of those telcos in the area of power management. And it's been a very tough time and struggling time for them to meet up with certain obligation. I'm of the opinion that rather than considering imposing 5% excise duty on the telcos, we should be looking at areas of collaborating for them to have more infrastructure, and we can have those drop calls, data calls, and data activities at a very lower and reasonable cost that can impact on the business, holistically. That's my view, and good that we are able to separate the telcos from the gaming and betting, then we can speak on the other perspective. But I feel leaving them with that particular cost will impact more, going through some of the things that they are facing in providing the service to the citizen of the country. So they should not be levied. Rather, we should look for area of collaboration to reduce their operating costs so that we can have it as much as almost free for us to carry out this particular transaction, because practically everybody is now going that route of digitalizing all their processes, and we are going to ride on the infrastructure so that we won't have the epileptic one that we are currently faced with.
5% excise duty would mean that for every 100 naira worth of services provided by the telcos, the government would charge them 5 naira. But excise duty is just one of the many other taxes that telcos are charged. They are made to pay corporate income tax, value added tax, withholding tax, capital gains tax. The federal government, in their own reasoning, is trying to increase revenue. But adding excise duty to corporate income tax, value added tax, withholding tax, and capital gains, how will they survive? What would be the direct implication on the consumers?
Yeah, it's what you and I understand, and that's why I feel that for telcos, it is not the best route to go by imposing that 5% excise duty tax on them. Aside those four key levies or taxes that you have actually called that, which is statutory, there are other levies that these telcos pay at state levels, pay at the federal levels, and the other ones, 1%, 2%. By the time you accumulate some of these things, is actually impacting on their operation. I think area we should look at is that how do we strengthen their business operation? How do we allow them to grow more in such a way that they can reduce the cost? You see, the cost of telco on average individual or corporate organization is very, very enormous. You make calls to areas where you can't go, you organize virtual meetings and the likes. You can go ahead and reduce the cost so that the consumer can have that, leverage of enjoying some of the dividend of what we call democracy. I'm still of the opinion that these statutory taxes, which is company income tax, value-added tax, which we all understand they have to pay. There are other levies that you are not even coming out to. I know there are others that they pay, they make their payee for their staff, all those other deductions that comes from them is really impacting. Now, when you even leave those taxes, the cost of operation for them is on the high side. Possibly because I'm close to one or two of them that I carry out operations for. Cost of operation basically on energy cost is nothing to bear at this point in time. As much as a lot of them with this current migration to band A and the what I would call like a conception by some of these other arm of government and agency believing that telco are making a lot of money. Let's see how we have our own fair share. It's really sniffing the process at which they can offer more services to the people. I'm still of the opinion that the 5% excise levy on them, because when you generate the revenue, what are you using it for? Can't we now make it in such a way that rather than levying them, we mandate them on strengthening their business deliverables, their service provision to the people, and will be able to have more service at a reduced and lower cost as everyone will be able to afford it. That's my own view about it. Rather than imposing, we should leverage on how we can allow them to strengthen the business. There are still a lot of local places where we are not getting internet connectivity. There are some you will get to even within the purview of the cities. Here you get to and you will not get a connection. You travel. I happen to travel by road. Most of the time, I ask myself if issues happen to anyone in this area, how do you expect such person to even call 911 or call our emergency to when there is no network connectivity in some of the area? I feel that we should look for a way to ease their process of operation and not overtax them so that they can provide more service and extend those services to have wider coverage so that the issue of internet voice call can become a thing that everybody will be able to afford.
Let's look at some of the services provided by the telcos. For one, we have voice services for mobile voice calls, fixed line, and the other. There's data services. There's also messaging and some other value-added tax, providing support for banking operations, fintech, and the others. So for business people, when there is an increase in tax, there's usually a tradition of passing on that cost or the tax to the end user, to the consumers. What would be the effect on the consumers? This is a time where there is advocacy for people to become more digital in their operations. Many businesses have gone digital, and even in the rural areas, people have embraced being digital. But with increase in the cost of services provided by telcos, what would this do to businesses that are dependent on the services of telcos to function? Even individuals, you highlighted one situation where there is poor connectivity and one happens to be in an area where you need to make calls. But what happens when you depend on the services for your business?
Yeah, with the current situation we found ourselves, I can tell you that if this is implemented, we might be seeing a situation where we'll be reducing the purchasing power of an average citizen. As we speak, practically is on the high side. And the only thing an average person is consoling themselves with is the use of this internet to carry out so many businesses. And even on the lighter move, to have some ease so that you don't get depressed. People go on social media to actually look at some of those comic things that ease their process and having an hectic day to ease down the pressure. So since we understand that the telcos can go ahead and absorb this, but indirectly it will be transferred to them. We have not had this. I'm sure you can read in the day, even in today's dailies, where the CEO of MTN is already advocating that if there is no increase in tariff by what they are suggesting to the tune of 10%, you might discover that some of these telcos will go underground and they will have to close their offices. That's already a threat, even to our economic growth and development. If the service providers are already lamenting, if we must come to term, we must be able to juxtapose revenue driven by the federal government vis-a-vis the survival of businesses in the country. So if you are driving to increase revenue, on what basis? Some of the infrastructure that we are still talking about have been provided by individuals and even the corporate organization themselves. You and I, we know that if you look to so many areas, you provide your water, you provide your alternative power supply, you even go ahead to invest in the road by doing some palliative, if indeed you want your vehicle to last long. People come together to contribute a lot of things to do this together. So I feel that government should release the burden on the telco, if you ask me, because it's a major driver of our economic growth. Practically everybody, when you talked about financial inclusion, it's riding on the telcos, because one of the services you claim that they provide is text messaging, USSD. You talked about internet banking and the like. So it cuts across practically everything that we, even the welfare of the citizen lies on this telco. So I feel that rather than overburden them because government requires revenue, which we all know, we can tax them the more in such a way that their own survival will lead to the growth of other arms of business. So if you have good network connectivity and you're able to spread it around, what that connotes is that we have more business growth. We can even have the congestion of the urban area to rural area, because you know that the infrastructure that are available in the urban is made available in the rural, and you can develop those areas with some of the things that you intend to do. So I would say that government should play down when it comes to telco and look for a way to strengthen increase in their infrastructure so that we can have more of their services being rendered and have reduction in the cost of these services that they are providing to their customers.
on the second part of this conversation before we get there, but let's just expand it around that, which is the call or the demand by telcos for the approval of 10% increase in tariff. So there is a report that says the National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NATCOMs, has urged the NCC, which is the Nigeria Communications Commission, to approve that 10% tariff increase for telecom providers. We're not going to look at the call or the call by the National Association of Telecom Subscribers supporting what the telcos are demanding, which is a 10% tariff increase. But looking at 10% tariff increase, is it overboard? There's a proposal for 5% excise duty, and then there's a call for 10% tariff increase. Is it overboard?
Well, to the consumer is like I said from my earlier submission, is overbearing to some of the consumers. And what the telcos are actually galvanizing towards is to say government is making this proposal. They might consider that on the long run. So how do we go about it to actually absorb that particular cost? So they are asking for 5% excise. This is being proposed, and they are already asking for 10% increase. So you can see that they've absorbed that 5%, and the other 5%, by the time maybe they go to negotiation table, they will end up with increase of 7%. So the other 2% can take care of the increase in their operating costs, which they have, of which I feel that as a nation, considering the sector that we are referring to, which is the telco, we do not need an increase in the cost to the consumer. They can absorb anything you want to give to them. I can tell you they will go all the route to either pass it to the consumer, or they reduce the quality of the service they provide to you and I, which would definitely not assist in the growth and development of our economy. Practically everything is relying on the telcos. They might consider that they are getting more revenue, but I can tell you that they are not spread to all the looks and cranes as expected. If you go to some areas, practically everybody in their home have internet connectivity that they can tap into at a very reasonable cost. It's not something that you come around and you're talking of hotspot. There are fibers that are actually laid, and people can afford this particular data cost at a very reasonable price. It's even there. You just tapped into it. So when you look at those huge investment on the part of the telco, I feel that what they are agitating for, it's not what we, the consumer, want. But if government goes the route of imposing or the proposal on them, then what that in tune is that they might get back to we, the consumer, and it might become very difficult. So I keep saying it, that it is not about revenue generation, but it's about business survival and being able to open the scope. When people who rely on these services are able to get more quality services, what that in tune contribute to it is that they will be able to grow their own business and be able to pay more taxes. And you are getting even far beyond that 5% that we're actually talking about that you want to levy on the sector that everybody is practically, with the level at which we are going now, we're talking of blockchain technology, we're talking of AI, which rides on telcos. You might consider that, they are opening more businesses, but we should look for a way to strengthen it in such a way that we can guarantee the quality delivery of services and be able to have the service cut across. It shouldn't be something that will be discriminatory or where somebody feel that internet service is meant for the elites and not just for the common man. Everyone is still struggling to make an ends meet, and increasing the tariff cost is not the route to go. So I would feel that government should look in that direction to see how to provide support, because they're already having big blow on this aspect of bringing their equipment in with the high cost of foreign exchange. And it's really, 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 really tough, if you must ask me.
But there is another argument in support of the government imposing excise duty on telcos. GSM came to Nigeria in 2001, and from that time till now, we've seen the growth of the telecom industry. Yes, there are challenges, but if you look back to when the telcos started operating in Nigeria from 2001 up till 2024, and you know how much a SIM cost after that time. SIMs were sold for thousands of naira, and some of them even went into sales of mobile phones themselves. Do you think that over the years, telcos have reaped enough from the Nigerian market? And so if the government is saying now we're adding 5% excise duty, it isn't too much, considering too the profits that they declare on the Nigerian Stock Exchange and how well the telecom sector has been performing there.
Yeah, I'm not of the school of thought to feel that they've grown. We want to acknowledge that. I remember years back, I think 2001, 2002, when I got my first mobile line. If you look at it, I was in the bank then. I know I got as high as 30 something thousand with the sergeant that they gave to us then, which today you cannot even use that phone for a small child. They've grown in leaps and bounds, where now SIM cards are being shared for free to everyone, or you need to tap into. But it is not enough. It is not about declaring those profits being declared. How much are they reinvesting back to strengthen the services that they are providing, that every looks and print? Everybody tends to concentrate in the urban area. I can tell you, if you travel to some part of this country, it's quite disheartening, the kind of service that you get from the telcos. For days, you might need to go and climb the hills for you to be able to have access to data and the like. How are we looking at, opening up, all those areas in such a way that corporate organization, individual can go the route of seeing how they can go ahead and make those things available under their part. So rather than concentrating on levying them, because if you levy them more of those taxes and generate revenue, are you building the infrastructure for them? The answer is no. Rather, you should give them a mandate of how they are going to strengthen, their service delivery, to have it across board. You see, if you are able to achieve this, I can tell you a lot of organizations who concentrate on in the urban area with the high cost of personnel that they are will be able to go to the rural area, and that on its own is rural development. On their part, you move to an area, you increase their livelihood in that area by creating employment rather than concentrating in the area. Then individuals too can go all out, having the confidence that now you have good internet connectivity and you are able to talk to the energy sector to provide supply. Because I know there are several areas that for days they do not even have power supply. If we can work these two together in such a way that we can synchronize it, it will assist. It's not about looking at the profit they are declaring and thinking how we can have a fair share as government. I feel that it's giving them a mandate to plow back those margins in strengthening that in the next few years, everywhere you go, there are still some parts in this Lagos that where you go there, internet connectivity is extremely poor. Internet connectivity is, you have to be struggling and asking yourself how to go about it. There are times that they are up and shut down because of the high cost of operation. So I feel that rather than looking at the bottom line of what they are declaring, we should monitor repatriating those funds. Should not be the way to go, but reinvesting it to strengthen the services that they are providing to the people at a very minimal cost to everyone that is actually utilizing their services.
The gaming and betting industry in Nigeria is said to be worth billions of dollars. Now, the federal government is moving to that sector to tax them 5% excise duty on gaming and betting services. We've seen changes happen in that industry, and which has led to growth, some cultural changes where it is not really frowned upon for people to engage in gaming and betting services. Gaming and betting shops open here and there. What's your thoughts on government charging that sector?
Okay, I think when it comes to gaming and betting, the proposal is not a bad one, if you ask me, in addition to whatever they might be paying company income tax, and every other taxes that they are paying. This I have to say, it is someone, and this is personal, it is someone that is well-fed that gambles. So I consider that excess is what you are actually utilizing to play the gamble. And if you are lucky, you have it. And serious money is being made. So it's like you are tasking more those who have more than enough to go into that business of gaming. And a lot of us have seen that as a discouraging factor. When you tax them the more, it will discourage them because some of the funds that are supposed to be invested, a lot of people, I consider it as a shortcut to prosperity. You just want to look at the way of gambling, betting, and get to the top without actually going through rigorous exercise because no serious tasking when it comes to betting. It's just to use your intuition to say, okay, they said these are figures that will come out. 5, 7 is a game of luck. So for me, imposing the 5% tax on gaming and betting proposal is not a bad idea because what you are doing is that you are actually tasking extra income that people are actually using to gamble, and that government can use to generate more revenue themselves, vis-a-vis the other that we earlier discussed about, which is the Telecom.
All right, so Nigeria is like a regional leader when it comes to the gaming industry in Africa. You guys have talked about the growth and all that, but 5% excise duty on the gaming industry, is it enough to serve as a disincentive for those who want to go into the business?
Well, it's not.
Is it even necessary to provide some disincentive for it? People are earning from it. What do you think?
Yeah, people are earning from it. But if you look at our culture, it is really not what is actually being supported because we consider it as shortcut to prosperity. Somebody is telling you use 500 to win 1 million. Can you invest 500 in a business and within 1 week or within 1 month you gain 1 million? We should consider that aspect that encourage creativity and innovation. When you gamble, it's just a shortcut that should not be encouraged. It's my personal view. If you ask me, people are doing it, but is it the most ideal thing that you can talk about when it comes to innovation and creativity? Do you sit down to think about the number to pick that will favor you? It's about luck. What's Do you go to school to study how to gamble? The answer is no. Even when you have the knowledge that you've been playing it for years, there are so many times that they will put your, back on the floor that you start crying and clamoring. So I feel that it's not a disincentive, but I feel it's a way for government to generate more on their part, since the people that are interested on it are using extra income. I consider it as extra income. And there should be a disincentive factor to discourage that shortcut to prosperity. I know a lot of people may not want to buy into that idea, but we must give room for innovation and creativity to grow our economy, while those excess funds can be taxed for government to generate revenue.
Move to propose a bill that would tax the gaming and the gaming and betting services industry. Is that some form of endorsement saying we recognize that this industry exists and thrives? What regulatory approach should the government put forward at this time to ensure that the activities of those who are in this industry are very much regulated?
Yeah, currently they are being regulated, if you ask me. And the government has recognized the contribution at which individuals that have invested in some of those businesses they have done. They have rules and regulation guiding them. The one because I'm not a fan of the field, I may not be able to delve so much into some of it, but I know that they are highly and well regulated. Gaming and betting did not just start now. The only thing is that technology has actually opened it up more. And that's why we are saying that you can improve other businesses by allowing the telco to survive. When you give room for telco to grow, there will be more creativity at which people can create more businesses to earn more income, and the government can go ahead to tax them for it. So it's not that today that you have, while we are growing up, we know when they always have this pool. It is pool that has actually been, modernized into this betting game that you are looking about. I saw one of the things you showed where they have to watch matches, saying that Liverpool versus Everton, you are able to gamble what they will win. And if you're able to do that, you win yourself certain amount of money. So you consider that gaming and betting are more of a pleasurable thing that you can just do at that particular ease of yours. Technology is what they are riding on, that is actually announcing that particular sector to practically everyone. Those days you need to, while we are growing up and we know about pool, you see a lot of people concentrating in a shop, waiting for the results to be announced. And when they say it's five that napped, eight on the pair of double, all those slangs. Now, at the comfort of everybody's home, you can play the game, you can bet and do that which is expected of you. And that's what technology, they themselves have invested in technology to take that particular wing, to the next level. And kudos to the telcos that is actually providing the platform at which they are riding to make that available. So for me, if you ask me, they are well regulated. Government can only do more by looking at how they can have more revenue from the excess that people are providing for that particular sector. Thank you very much. I love that clip. That's the way we used to have it those days, that everybody pick up the gambling and say, no, Everton will definitely beat Liverpool. No, it is Arsenal that will deal with Man U. And across all the places where they are playing, everybody knows that they are gambling on them. And those are the kind of look you see those days when result is about to be announced. But now there is no central convergence for some of these things. What they do now is everybody stay at the ambit of their own and they come out with the result and count their gain or losses, whichever way it comes out to be.
Of the many types of betting, sports betting seems to be one of the most big one that is really thriving, and people bet on games. But if you look at it, the bet most times is on matches played by clubs that are foreign. What happened to the Nigerian sports industry capitalizing on the growing betting industry to grow sports? At what time would we see people bet on Aimba and maybe Canopilas?
Yeah, well, that's a call for the Nigeria Football Federation to see how they can improve some of the quality of the games that they play. A lot of people that have not even stepped to the airport have their fans, click to this European, Italian, Spanish Liga because of the way they have actually improved on their gaming system. And that's why betting can go on them. It become unpredictable. For some of the matches that we have locally, we still need to give good incentive even to the player. Can you compare what is being earned overseas and what is earned here? Can you really go all that out to give all your best when you compare? So even those playing locally, when they consider what is being paid outside, they want to leave the show of this country and go and join and allow people to bet on them. So it's a call to the Nigerian Football Federation to see how we improve on our infrastructure. Talked in terms of the stadium, talked in terms of the fee pays to the technical crew, talked in terms of what is being paid even to the player, their welfare. Well, if you and I, I'm sure you can mention, like, you cannot mention stars in Nigerian Football League if I ask you. But if I ask you to mention 5 star you know, in the European League. Everybody know Messi. Everybody know Rashford. Everybody know Saka, which is my African name. You know, you can mention lots, but mention one of the Nigerian player who is actually doing well. Nobody can because nobody is interested in it. So the NFF is a wake-up call for them to actually, we need to improve our infrastructure where it will attract people to go and watch matches. It's when you watch, you can start introducing this out there to say, it's people that actually brought this betting up. And I can tell you, and it has become an household business that everybody is now practicalizing, where people will say, no, shooting will beat Rangers. Rangers will deal with Aimba. How can you, okay, stitch your neck to it? I'll beat it. And before you know it, it now becomes a norm that 1, 2, 3, 4 people started that everybody is now having. So we need to improve the infrastructure and the welfare of some of these players locally so that we can get to that level at which football will become an household that will be watched in Africa by all stakeholders.
All right, let's look at the government side now. Increasing revenue. Yes, the tax net has been widened, but there is a concern on the side of the citizens. If government is on a revenue increase drive, what should be the corresponding action of government? Companies are made to pay tax. Citizens are encouraged to pay their tax. But what should government do on the other side, since they are the receivers of the tax paid?
Maybe I will speak from the aspect of a finance person to say that is debit and credit of the books of accounts. Government are looking at way of increasing their revenue. We expect them in fulfillment some of the social contracts that an average citizen is supposed to enjoy. If you look at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, Section 14, subsection 2 speaks of the responsibility of the government, and that is the provision of security and social welfare of the citizen of the country. How much of it can we speak of today when it comes to security? How secure are we? You and I understand so much that is bedeviling a lot of our businesses. People are scared. While some of us are growing up, we enjoy traveling at night, but can you gamble that even to travel by day with the level of kidnapping, attack by the terrorists, how much of that is being plugged into our security apparatus to make sure that we are secure? Because there's this say I used to say, secured environment is a prosperous nation. So when security is there, you can move any time of the day without any fear. There are periods in this country where people you work 24/7. During the day, some people they will open their shop, even in this Lagos of ours. When our fathers will tell us that in Isaleko, it's 24 hours that there are hot rice that you eat. That is business growth for a certain set of people. But where insecurity bedevils the people, that means government is failing in fulfilling that aspect of the social contract that is expected of them. Speak to infrastructure in terms of health, in terms of education. Everybody wants to send their children out of the country. But there was a time in this country that we have the foreigners come to our universities to study. Talked of the likes of our primary university like UI, OAU, and all others. How many of the foreigners do we have? Even lecturers coming in to actually, lecture our people within here, considering that as a work for them to do. It's because our education sector has really collapsed. And everybody, if you ask a child of 7 who is in primary 2 or 3 now, all he's thinking about is how to tell his parent to take him out of the country so that I can have a conducive atmosphere of learning. You see, I always tell everybody all this infrastructure are interwoven. When you talked about power is sacrosanct. Those days while people like me I was growing up, I read at night. And it's because there is availability of power supply. But these days, when you have to struggle about availability of power in areas where it wasn't a choice. I didn't grow up in a serene environment where you can say we are on band A that period. We just believe that electricity is provided for all. You can have a lot to do during the day, and at night you will, because you are sure, very optimistic that there will be power supply. And that's what is working in most of the developed climes. And when you look at the telco that we earlier discussed on, everything is being digitalized. Internet is the order of the day. Every of our children now, they go on AI to study, to ask questions of what is actually happening. If power is not out there, there is nothing we are going to do. So for me, in as much as government is looking for area to rake more revenue to their side, we should consider fulfilling the social contract. Health-wise, a lot of primary health center are not functioning the way we used to have it. I'm privileged to enjoy free education at my time. Do we still have it operational in our public school? A lot of people have abandoned public school. Maybe for information, I always tell people, I'm proud to say both my primary and secondary education was actually in a public school. And those are the days of our Baba Jakonde giving us free education. I can imagine if we do not enjoy those benefits then, we will not be speaking of the grammar that we are talking of today. But you consider that a lot of parents are paying through their nose to actually send their children to school, and it's making education that expensive for an average citizen to bear. So if you are making more revenue, can we go back to a situation where we can have this free education being enjoyed by the low-level cadre with our public school, and reduce the pressure that we have on this private school? A lot of us don't know private school while we are growing up, but because of the situation of things and the failure in the public school setting, a lot have actually canvassed for private school, and we now consider that as a lucrative business when education should be a priority for the growth of our economy.
Quickly, let's go back to the new bill. So this new bill, which the federal government is proposing, is part of the Nigerian Tax Act. Additionally, the bill seeks to regulate currency transaction by specifying that any difference between the CBN official rate and the actual transaction rate will attract excise duties. So this duty, it will be on self-assessment basis so the seller will be charged the excess as excise duty and to be on self-assessment basis. What's your thoughts on this in a way to ensure that there is regulation between the official exchange rate and the actual rate that is being sold?
I'm not of the school of thought to say that we should even allow the existence of this differential of official rates and what we call the black market, the parallel market, in existence. Unification of our currency is very germane, and availability is another area that we need to concentrate on more. I will feel that rather than thinking of because what we are alluding to is that we cannot coordinate together our foreign exchange policy in order to unify that which we have, possibly because there are bottlenecks in supply to the demand that we have. And so people have to resort to third party, which is the parallel market, to get some of the things that is actually required. And what we have seen in time past is you discover that a lot of people from the official market get access to some of these funds and actually make it available to the third party at the differential. And this should be discouraged, if you ask me, rather than considering of imposing excise duty, so that for business growth, everybody can have a unit to say, this is the source at which we are getting the foreign exchange. And I know with my business plan, I can have access to this from the government or from the single unit that we all provided. Not you quoting, because when you look at the disparity between the government rate and that of the black market, it's really nothing to write home about. But it's just of recent that we are seeing them that the federal government seems to be moving, in line with what we are having in the parallel market. But I think there should be unification. Rather than considering tasking the differential, we should start talking of how to unify it, because that on its own will be impact on business owner. They want to have a direction in such a way that they can think through with some of their plans of what the foreign exchange, if at all they require it, will be in the next 6 months, in the next 8 months, in the next 1 year, even the production in the next 2 years. So rather than considering taxing the differential, which some of us will consider as failure on the part of the government, not being able to manage the foreign exchange policy accurately. I think we should go back to the drawing board and see how to close the gap to have a unification of that particular foreign exchange for every businesses to rely. We need to have stability of this currency rather than the volatility that we are currently experiencing in the nation now.
Let's look at the self-assessment part. The seller is responsible for calculating and paying the excise duty on a self-assessment basis. So what's the possibility of this happening if a seller has charged more than the official rates for the exchange? What is the possibility of that same seller self-assessing and calculating the excess, paying that as excise duty?
It's quite simple. You can ride on technology to have that. Every transaction that goes on is actually being tracked via your business transaction, your banking transaction, if you ask me. So that's why we've been advocating for more improvement in technological advancement in our nation. And that you and I know that we need to ride on telco, who provides the internet to make that work. So it's about developing, maybe an app or a platform where you log in. Maybe you are buying the dollar from somewhere and somebody is also buying from you. So there is a platform at which you can trade and have some of those things. And it's open to the government to see how each transaction is actually going. And you can only achieve that through technology. Because it brings out the transparency that you are talking about. A lot of people have said blockchain technology is one of the way to go because it's discreet. It doesn't even reveal the identity, but you carry on the restricted side to see how those transactions are going on. So self-assessment is achievable if we invest money in technology in reporting some of the transaction, either from those that are actually providing it to the seller, from the seller to the buyer, and we also the transparency, and we'll be able to account for it. But I have said that rather than going the route of levying on the differential that the sellers are making based on those things, can we have unification of that particular foreign exchange in such a way that every businesses can plan, either now or in the future of their growth, rather than this volatility that we are expecting that is becoming unpredictable of every businesses, of what will become, of what they are actually projecting for the next 2-3 months.
Well, that sounds like self-assessment sounds like if you go outside the line, penalize yourself. Thank you so much, SOUQ, for being our guest this morning on Early Exchange, having looked at the 5% excise duty proposed by the federal government on telecom, betting and gaming services in Nigeria. What would be the implications? All of this have been looked into in the course of the discussion. Again, thank you, Sheson.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.